The last few nights you have mentioned that we are the soul and not the body. So what is the purpose of the body then? And what does right relationship with the body look like? The body it's a vehicle. Now, on the one hand, if we get very, very philosophical, very esoteric, very deep, we can say, well, if our ultimate goal of life is to recognize that we are soul, that we are spirit, that we are divine, and to merge back with our consciousness into that divinity, which is the goal of life. That is actually why we have taken birth. Contrary to what any of us may believe, we're not here to be this profession or that career or this job or that title. We're actually here at the deepest level to experience the truth of ourselves, to awaken to the divinity of who we are. And so, if we get very philosophical and esoteric, one could ask, well, so what's the point anyway? Why bother putting us through this situation in which we are God, we are soul, we are spirit? We're then given this body, but our whole purpose is to realize that we're not body, we're soul. And I realize that's not exactly what was asked, and we'll come to the question that was asked in a moment, but I feel like this is an important foundation to that, because when we talk about, well, why do we even have a body? What's the purpose of the body? We have to first understand, well, who are we? Why are we here? What role is the body? So we are soul, we are spirit, we are consciousness, we are divinity. We've been given this, not just the body, but we've been given the forgetfulness, the aspect of the part of the body, the brain, which is the seat of the mind, the physical seat of the mind, in which we forget who we are, so that we can go on the journey to go back. And the most consensus that I've heard on the reason for this by the scriptures, by the saints, by the enlightened masters is it's God's Leela, it's God's divine play. And that the experience of coming back to, reconnecting, reuniting is so beautiful that it's worth that temporary separation. Those of you who are married or in relationship know that when you fight, the making up after you fight is very frequently so sweet, so passionate even in that type of a relationship, that there are people, there are couples who, if not consciously, certainly subconsciously, create drama, create problems, create conflict to get out of the mundane feeling of same old, create a little bit of this conflict and passion, because then the act of coming back together after the emotional separation actually brings you frequently closer than you were before. And it certainly gives you a renewed emphasis on the closeness. In a similar way, when we think about our relationship with God, if we are just soul and we have no body and we are just, there's nothing but soul and we're part of, we are soul. Like in the ocean, there aren't really drops. I mean, on the one hand, you could say, well, yeah, there's an infinite number of drops in the ocean. But on the other hand, there actually isn't even one drop because there's no separation of where any drop ends and the ocean begins. It only becomes a drop when it's out of the ocean. Take a handful of, scoop of water, throw it, you're going to see drops. Water evaporates, it goes in the clouds, it comes down as rain, drops. But when it was ocean, there were no drops. And once it merges back in, no more drops. There's just ocean. So, if we're just soul, spirit, God consciousness, then there's nothing but God, which is actually the highest truth. It's the fundamentals of what Advaita teaches us, the path of non-duality teaches us. Nothing but God. Just true. The body is just this vehicle for the truth of who we are, which is God. And the experience of remembering, reconnecting with that which we forgot, with that from which we have become separate, is so sweet and so beautiful that this is the way that I've heard it explained that makes the most sense to me of why God, being omnipotent, being able to run this creation, however he, she, it would like to run it, why God would create a situation where we forgot, where we had to come into the body just to remember and then come back, is for the experience of that reconnecting, to experience that love, which only happens when it's two that are becoming one. If it's just one, no experience of lover, beloved, love as separate entities. You don't have the same experience of love. In order to really experience love, there needs to be a lover, there needs to be a beloved. And there's this energy that flows between the lover and the beloved that we call love. And in that beauty of that energy is where we experience that ecstasy, in the coming together. But coming together is only sweet if there's two separate things that have to come together. So that's a foundational way of thinking about why we might be in the body to begin with. The human body, the human birth, is said to be the pinnacle of spiritual evolution. It's also said to be, of course, the pinnacle of biological evolution. That, humans are, if you look at science and you go back throughout history and they'll say, okay, here's where it started, and then we had bacteria and we had amoebas and we had single-celled organisms and we had multi-cell organisms, and then, okay, slowly through the evolution, it's shown on not just a timeline chronologically, but also a timeline sort of hierarchically in terms of the complexity and therefore the value of the organism. So we are said to be the pinnacle of evolution. There's obviously a lot of doubt about that and a lot of a lot of areas. There's a beautiful expression that says, the frog does not drink up the well in which he lives. So on that level, we're not even as intelligent as a frog. Animals tend to only kill either for food or when they're being threatened. You don't hear of animals that regularly kill just for the excitement of killing. They kill when they feel threatened, or they kill because they need to eat. We're sort of the only aspect of evolution that kills just because we're in a bad mood, or killed because 30 years ago our parents did something and it, made us angry still today, and so we've gone and have taken that out on somebody and have harmed them. So we're certainly not the pinnacle of evolution in that way. We're definitely not the pinnacle of evolution in the awareness of how to take care of our home. We're actually sort of the bottom of evolution. I mean, every other species on Earth seems to know how to ensure that it doesn't destroy that which is keeping it alive. The pinnacle, theoretically, of spiritual evolution. And the reason that we are said to be that, the reason that the scriptures and the saints and the tradition teaches us that to have a human birth is the highest possible birth, is because we're the only species that we know of that can actually witness itself, that can be aware and conscious of itself, that can say, I'm angry. Okay, wait. Let me take a deep breath. Let me not hit this person. Or, I'm angry. I'm going to kill them. I'm going to hit them. I don't care that I'm going to get thrown in jail later. Or it's fully aware of the consequences, but makes the decision otherwise. We are said to be the only species that can have that level of awareness of what's going on inside of ourselves. That is the only species that is able to experience what we call the witness, which is that aspect in which, when we meditate, and even then when we live, that we can sit in, that's watching me, that's watching my thoughts. And otherwise, who's watching my thoughts? If we say watch your thoughts, well, who's thinking and who's watching? Right? I mean, clearly someone is thinking. The thoughts aren't automatically generated. So someone is thinking, someone is watching, and then we can even go deeper and be the one watching the witness. And it's said that the human birth is the highest spiritual birth because we have that ability. And that ability is what enables us to attain enlightenment. That without the ability to be conscious of ourselves, we're not able to experience the truth of who we are. A dog, it is said, I don't have any recollection of personal lives as a dog, nor could I say with any sense of surety exactly what they think, but the teachings are that a dog never says to itself, Kihare, I'm not really a dog. I mean, yeah, I've got a dog body this time around, but this isn't really who I am. I'm spirit, I'm soul, I'm essence, I'm divinity. I just happen to be in this dog-like body. But that awareness is what's crucial for our spiritual enlightenment, liberation, moksha, freedom, awakening, whatever word we use. Because as long as I identify as the body, I'm not going to be able to know who I really am, which isn't the body. As long as I identify as that which constantly changes, that which is born, that which dies, I can't simultaneously identify as that which is never born and never dies. And so, in the Bhagavad Gita, for example, Lord Krishna explains very, very simply. It's the, sort of, who are you 101. You are the soul, which cannot be cut with knives, cannot be dried by the wind, cannot be burned by fire, cannot be wet by water. You are not the body. He gives it to us just absolutely, very simply, beyond any doubt. Here it is. Bodies are born, bodies die. You are the soul. You are neither born nor you die. So that's the truth of who we are, but then how do we realize it? And so circling back to the specific question then of what role does the body play? Well, the aspect of the body which sits in our skull, which we call the brain, is the medium through which we experience that consciousness. So if I'm going, for example, to practice a meditation of niti-niti, I'm going to say, not this, not that, not my clothes, not my skin, not my blood, not my organs, not my thoughts. I'm going to go through all those things to experience who I really am. Well, I have to have a functional brain in order even to be able to do that meditation. If you remove my brain, or you make me brain dead, or even if you inject me with all sorts of, drugs, I can't do that. I cannot do that meditation. I cannot have that experience. I have to have the ability to experience the witness, to know that I'm not the actor. And then I have to have the experience of being the one watching the witness, that knows that I am not the witness either, that they're just different levels of awareness. But if I don't have functional brain capacity, I can't actually have that awareness. Now, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. The brain does not create consciousness. But for us to know it, we need the brain. So, for example, you are sitting here. This beautiful woman is sitting here before me. And I know that because I can see you. My eyes tell me that you are here. If I were blind, or I closed my eyes, and I couldn't see you, but you spoke, I could use my ears to know that you were here. Or maybe you have a beautiful fragrance, and so I could smell your beautiful fragrance. Maybe if you came close enough, I would feel you or feel the wind as you passed me by. But if I cannot see you, hear you, smell you, touch you, or taste you, I have no way of interacting with your existence. Now, of course, you still exist. My inability to know that has not impacted your existence at all, but it has absolutely impacted my ability to benefit from you, to know you, to experience you. And so in the same way, consciousness, soul, spirit, divinity. This exists without the brain. We know that because the brain dies when the body dies, and soul, spirit, that's what doesn't die. But the brain is the medium through which we interact with that, through which we experience that, in the same way that my 5 senses are the way that I experience and interact with the physical world. And so if we're going to meditate, if we're going to introspect, if we're going to practice any of the paths to God, we're given 3 very basic paths. I mean, there's an infinite number, but 3 general ones we've been given. A path of devotion, bhakti yoga, path of knowledge, jnana yoga, path of action or service, karma yoga. Well, all 3 of them require the body. Either my arms and legs in service, my mind to understand, to think, my heart to love. All of these are aspects of the physical body. And so the role that the body plays is our medium for our awakening. Which reminds us how to use it. It means we need to keep it healthy, because we obviously want to get as close to enlightenment as we can. If you've got a long journey to take, you want to make sure your car is in good shape. You wouldn't want to get in a very old car that was about to break down before you got in a long journey. If you were, about to get on an airplane and you noticed that the wing was falling off, chances are you'd say, oh, maybe I'll take a different flight. Because we understand I need this vehicle to help me successfully reach my destination. And if this vehicle collapses before I reach my destination, I lose. And so in the same way with the body, we take care of it because we know I need it to get me as close as I can. Additionally, when we realize that who we are is divine, the body becomes, as they say, a temple. Wherever the divine lives, well, that's a temple. Now, most temples may be made out of bricks and cement or wood. This is made out of a different composition of elements. But nonetheless, it's a temple because it's where the divine lives. So we also take care of it for that. So the body is a tool, a vehicle for us to awaken. And lastly, I deeply believe that it's a tool and a vehicle for us to experience the divinity of the creation outside of us. Now, we know on the highest, deepest level, as I said, that it's all one, it's all God. And, as we spoke about in the beginning, the coming together of 2 is really beautiful. And in the same way, beholding a sunset is very beautiful. Beholding a sunrise is very beautiful. Looking into the eyes of a loved one is very beautiful. Walking in nature, very beautiful. Eating cool ice cream on a hot day, wonderful. Drinking hot tea on a cold day, wonderful. And I deeply believe, actually, that we've been given the elements of the body so that we can experience and enjoy the beauty of creation. We tend to get lost in that, though, and we forget. We think that that may be the only reason we have a body. And that's where we get into the just enjoyment as our path of life, as we were talking about last night, the path of prayas. But just because it's definitely not the only reason we have a body, doesn't mean that it isn't a reason. And I've got a very deep faith in God, and I believe deeply that everything we've been given has been given for a reason, including our ability to see in color, including our ability to have our eyes full of tears when we see the stars or see a sunset. I mean, think about it. If you paint something beautiful, or you write a beautiful poem, or you create a beautiful piece of music, wouldn't you want someone to actually be able to enjoy it? I mean, if you were a painter and your only audience were people who were blind, it wouldn't be nearly as satisfying as if you had an audience of people who could see. If you made music and your only audience were people who were deaf, it wouldn't be nearly as satisfying as if you had an audience of people who could hear. And I believe deeply that in the creation, that God knows how beautiful the creation that He's created is. And that there must be some level of wanting the creation to be able to enjoy that which has been created. With the sights, with the sounds, with the tastes, with the touch, with the smells. And so I think that's another reason we have a body, is to actually experience the divinity of creation. But the highest aspect of that, of course, is that we experience God through it. Not that we take that as the end-all and be-all. The sunset is beautiful, not just as, oh, that was really nice, but it's beautiful if we can look at it and think, wow, you the painter of this sunset, thank you. When we hear the music, we don't just connect to the music, but we connect to the singer or the player or the composer. And so in the same way, as we move through the world and our physical bodies give us the experience of the beauty of creation, we should remember to use that experience to connect back with the Creator, with the giver of that which we are beholding, and the giver of the eyes that enable us to behold, and the giver of the brain that knows how to take impulses that are actually upside down and backwards on the retina and actually turn them right side up and, the right way, and all the different impulses and what means this color and what's that and what's movement and what's still. The creator of that system in the brain that we can actually see. Being human is the pinnacle of what we would call the physical evolution. But when, what the tradition says, of course, is that we evolve even beyond human, of course. Ultimately, we evolve to just going back to merging with God, that there is no separation. Traditionally, when we speak about moksha, that's what moksha is. I don't need a body anymore. I've evolved beyond the need of a body. I used my body to experience the truth, to clear all my karmic bank account. I now no longer need a body, and I can just stay merged with God. But now my Guru, Puja Swamiji, says, moksha is here. He emphasizes and reminds us that the body is not actually the bondage. The body's beautiful. The bondage is in the mind. The bondage is the anger, the ego, the grudges, the expectations, the fears. That's what keeps us stuck. And that the moksha for which we should aim is not about, oh God, take me out of this body. But, oh God, take me out of this hell I've created for myself in this body. Take me out of the prison I have locked myself in. Let this body be just a beautiful, beautiful vehicle for me to experience your divine creation. But something in which I'm free, not chained. And so in that way, the highest evolution is still in the body, but it's in the body by choice and with freedom, rather than in the body because you're stuck.